What is it that worries you the most? Because I hear when you're talking about population contraction, I hear a level of concern in your voice. And I'm wondering what drives it.
There are two things that concern me. One is when we paint population as the problem, we look for population-based solutions. And we see murmurings around the world, I would say particularly in the United States, if we want more babies, then we might have to make that happen. So when you see population as the problem and population as the solution, I really worry that women's rights, access to contraception, for example, are on the chopping block. The second thing that worries me is that we've kept the focus just on the population numbers. So how many babies will there be? Why are there so few babies? And we've taken no responsibility for adjusting to this. So I think we are decades behind in preparing for the world that is surely to come. And instead, we keep trying to think only in terms of this as a population issue.
Now, but I wanted to get a little past that and say, let's imagine, we had this massive, run up from just a couple billion to what's going to be 10 over just a few generations. Why is it necessarily so horrible if we have a gradual slide from 10 to 8 to 7 to 5? Why is that necessarily a problem?
For me, it's not necessarily a problem. For governments, for families, it could be a problem. So the governments that do not adjust their systems, they will have a problem. And in fact, if we're thinking geopolitically, who's likely to come out on top, it'll be the ones who realize the fastest that they're not going to reverse these population trends, and they instead build to deal with it. That means you're thinking about things like the workforce, your use of AI, for example, education, housing, social security systems. And I think that it's also an issue at the family level, though, because we have very poor care infrastructure around the world. And so, if the government is not the one who is taking the responsibility for caring for the people, and it's not that case, not the case everywhere in the world. We tend to think about European-style social welfare systems and aging, but not every country in the world has that system. For example, look at Singapore. So who holds the bag then? It's the family. And when we say the family, that's really code for women. So failure to prepare and put in place systems that deal with what you actually have, which is an aging, smaller population in the future, well, that's what's really dangerous.
What happens to a Japan, a South Korea in a generation if they don't actually pivot to a changing population?
Japan's probably adjusting better than many other countries. I think about France, for example. Let's just contrast Japan and France. We can see that Japan, average age of exit from the workforce is at older ages. So people tend to work longer. The population is healthier. That right there gets you huge bonus points when it comes to adjusting to aging. In France, they've got a healthy population, but there's still all these pressures for early retirement. Well, when you're living decades beyond retirement, you really constrain those social welfare systems. So, that's what I look for. If you are a country that the government has made extreme promises to take care of you, and there are fewer people in the workforce, then there's not as much money flowing into that pie, and those pies being divided in many other ways. So I think the strains in government budget is where we'll really see the biggest issue. So there are trade-offs.
Yeah.
What will go while you pay for an older population? Will it be defense? Will it be something else? Will it be education?
Especially an older population that has a significant amount of power over political decision-making.
That's where I think the democracy part is very interesting. I love democracy, fantastic, but I think it's very difficult to do long-term planning in a democracy, and demography is the ultimate long-term planning. It is looking out and saying, in 30 years, we know what the strains will be. How do we put in place structures now that support that?